and you're working and you're exhausted, regardless of your circumstances, we just know that there's a lot of feelings that go with this. And I myself am finding that as the state and the country looks at reopening and exploring what that looks like, I find that my feelings are even heightened, just in the unknown of what that's going to look like and what that's going to mean long term, and how that's going to feel and how that's going to impact our marriage and our family and our city. And so just becoming aware of what we feel is really important. And feelings are valid and they're real, and they can often feel so powerful that we're not really sure what to do with them. And it feels like that they are running our perception of our life and our circumstances, and they can just feel overwhelming.
One of the things that I've been thinking about is a lot of times we bank on just our routines or our daily stuff to be distractions from the things that go on in our heads, the voices, the feelings that we have. And we're able to use those things to combat those. However, during this time, things have slowed down and things have been silenced. So the voices in our head can get really loud during this time. And some of those can be positive, some of those can be negative, and we want to just kind of take a few minutes and talk through what that looks like to address those and deal with those. And most importantly, to recognize that our feelings don't define who we are. Our identity is in Christ, and that's what really where our value comes from, where our importance comes from. So we were talking a little bit about what this looks like, and specifically, I was thinking in terms of speaking with Jacqui, and she's a doer, and her life often is about what is it that I can be doing specifically for other people, and how can I be reaching out, how can I be helping? And that happens all the time. She's battling that and going, okay, should I be doing more? Can I be doing more? What are the other things that I need to be doing? During this time, there's less that can be done a lot of times, and so that can cause some inner turmoil where she starts to battle these, am I valuable enough? Am I worthy? Am I doing everything that I can be doing to be who I should be? And so recognizing that in her, and speaking into the truth about who she is and the things that really matter, coming back to some of the principles from Ephesians 1 through 3 that talk about the fact that she's a child of God, that she's been blessed with every spiritual blessing, that she's been given these things from Christ himself because she's valuable and loved, and not based on the things that she does, but because of who she is. And then because of who she is, she's able to do the amazing things that she does. And so speaking into that and making sure that the voices in her head don't overtake that, and to recognize that, so that she doesn't start feeling like she's not valuable, not enough, and not significant. And so as my wife, I take the time to speak into those things and to help her recognize that it's the things that she does are valuable, but they don't define who she is.
I find that the feelings can be so overwhelming sometimes, or so strong, or I'm just battling in my head. The lies, like Mike was explaining, that's a real thing that I battle. And then there's lots of other emotions that can go along with that and other circumstances in life. I think it's natural for us as selfish beings to be caught up in our own heads and in our own circumstances. And I can not be very mindful of who Mike is and what he might be wrestling in his own head and in his everyday. As an introvert, he needs some time alone, and this time of quarantine has been really challenging with our 3 kids at home, him getting time alone. And he might be in a room by himself, but the kind of time that he sometimes requires or sometimes could really benefit from is just a really quiet home that nobody is in. It's just him having some downtime and rejuvenating. That's just not really possible right now. So knowing that about him and really feeling helpless to be able to give that to him has been hard, but checking in with him to see how he's doing, checking in with him to see if there's anything that I can do to ease this for him, but that has taken me getting outside of myself and getting outside of my own struggles and leaning into him and working to meet that need in him the best that I can, or at least to just know that about him. And sometimes that's the best thing that we can do for one another, is just to be having these conversations, just to be sharing where we're at, what we're thinking, what we're feeling, what we're doing with that. And we can't always do something for one another, but listening is one of the greatest things that we can do. Having compassion and patience and understanding, praying for one another, and being open and mindful to things that we may be able to do to love one another well in the midst of that, and to be able to meet those needs is really valuable.
And we recognize that our circumstances are our circumstances. We're in the situation that we're in, and yours may be very different. And so the important thing is really knowing your spouse and knowing the things that they are struggling with and being able to step into those with them. And sometimes, like Jacqui said, it's the conversations, being able to ask, what's wrong? What's going on? And sometimes we're reluctant to ask that because we don't want the answer to be us. And so we just hope that it'll get better and keep on going. But it's really important to ask those questions and to be able to say, is it something that I'm doing? Is there something that I could be doing that'll help this? And sometimes the fear is the answer is not us, and there's nothing that we can do, but still being willing to step in the midst of that and just walk in it next to our spouses. And those are some of the things that we can deal with. And there can be a whole slew of feelings that are coming up right now. If you are an essential worker and you're out there every day, you may be exhausted, and it's easy to feel taken advantage of, underappreciated, undervalued, and that can start to cause all sorts of resentment and stuff like that can, again, creep into who we are. But to recognize that you are loved, you are valuable, and that it's not because of the things that you do that you're important. You do the things that you do because you're important. And to, again, be able to speak into those pieces in our spouses' lives is huge. So those are the things we talked about. Did I miss anything? Did we miss anything?
I don't think so. I would just really encourage you to sit down individually and or together and go through Ephesians 1-3, whether you've read it a million times in your life or you've never read it before at all. Dive in with the mind of looking for, what does Christ say about who we are? Because he clearly identifies who we are. And if you're anything like me, what I naturally hold about who I am and my worth isn't what Christ says. He has a much greater worth for me than I had for myself. And so Ephesians 1-3 is always that reminder of who we are, and that our identity is set in him. It doesn't waver. It doesn't increase or decrease based on what we do or what we don't do. But it's because of who he has called us, how he identifies us, that compels us to love the way that he loves us. And that love is first and foremost here with your spouse, that you can love each other the way that Christ loves you. And if you know your identity because of what Christ has said, then you can see that identity in your spouse and you can affirm that identity. If we don't know who we are in Christ, then we can't see that in our spouse. So we can't give what we don't have. And as I understand more and more who I am, then I can see that in Mike, and I can reflect that back to him. I can affirm him in that. I can remind him. I can be a source of that when he loses sight of that for himself. So I just encourage you to dig in and allow it to be water that just washes over you, so that you don't have to be tossed to and fro in your identity on a daily basis or a minute by minute basis. That's not how you define yourself or how the world defines you. Christ has identified us, and that is freeing, and it is refreshing, and it is a gift, that we don't have to wonder where our worth comes from. We don't have to create that ourselves. It is done. It is established. We just have to stand boldly in it. So we're always here for you.
Yep. If you need us, feel free to reach out. Again, couple support at westwoodcc.org if you want to email us, or if you want to reach out to us any other way, we'd love to hear from you. And we're so grateful that we're able to spend this time with you.
Have a great week.